My name is Collins Fairmont. I'm 34 years old. For the last 11 years, every time I walked into that house, someone found a way to remind me I was the family's biggest embarrassment. The one who still picked through trash for a living. This Christmas Eve was supposed to be no different. Halfway through dinner, my younger brother leaned back in his chair, smirked, and said loud enough for the entire table to hear, "Still digging through garbage to pay rent? Huh, sis?" The room exploded with laughter. My parents sighed at the same time, shaking their heads in perfect unison. Such an embarrassment to the family. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I simply raised my glass and took a slow sip of Cabernet. That's when the 85-inch television on the wall cut from Christmas carols to a breaking news alert. The CNBC anchor's voice filled the room. Tonight, Forbes exclusively reveals the identity of the mysterious CEO behind the $9 billion sustainable luxury empire, with a personal net worth estimated at $2.7 billion. The name appeared on the screen. Collins Fairmont. The silence was instant. My brother's wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered against the marble floor, red spreading across the rug like spilled blood. He stared at the screen, mouth open, and whispered, "What the hell?" If you want to know what I said next, and how that single night ended every relationship I had with the people laughing at me, stay until the end. Hit like so you don't miss what comes next. And let's get into it. I learned very early that our house had a hierarchy. At the top was my younger brother, Weston. From the day he came home from the hospital, everything revolved around him. He wasn't just a baby. He was an investment. The future. Proof that the Fairmont name would keep shining exactly where my parents wanted it to. He got the imported English rocking horse before he could even sit up. At 4, a junior-sized Bentley electric car. At 7, when he decided he wanted to play hockey in a state that barely understood ice, my father had a regulation rink built behind the stables. Heated. Floodlit. Perfect. Every report card was framed. Every trophy was celebrated like a national holiday. Staff clapped when he walked into rooms. And then there was me. I wasn't planned. I wasn't celebrated. I was tolerated. My mother didn't bother hiding it. When I was 16, she laid out my future between sips of her mimosa at the country club pool. SMU. The right sorority. Then marry someone whose family already owned half of Dallas. Law school or an MBA was optional. Producing the next generation of Fairmonts was not. That was the blueprint. But I had other plans. On the 3rd floor of the house there was an old sewing room no one used anymore. I started hiding there after school, surrounded by discarded fabric from alteration departments my mother donated to charity for the tax credit. I took apart vintage gowns just to understand how they were built. I taught myself pattern making from library books. When we traveled to New York, I slipped away to the garment district and begged cutting room scraps from sample floors. By 17, I was hoarding every birthday check to buy deadstock silk that mills in Italy had rejected for being imperfect. That's when Grandma Ellie found me. It was 3 in the morning. I had pins clenched between my teeth, trying to turn a rejected length of cashmere into a coat on a dress form I wasn't supposed to have. Instead of yelling, she sat on the floor beside me, handed me a cup of coffee, and studied the fabric in silence. After a long moment she said, "You've got an eye most designers would sell their soul for. Don't let this house talk you out of it." She was the only one who ever said anything like that. When my acceptance letter came, full merit scholarship, no legacy strings, my father laughed so hard he had to sit down. My mother told her friends I was exploring alternative education options. Weston told his fraternity brothers his weird sister was moving north to freeze and play with garbage. During my 2nd year, I finally called home and told them I wasn't coming back for holidays if they couldn't accept my life. My father didn't hesitate. "Then you're on your own, Collins." Completely. My mother cried for exactly 30 seconds before booking a ski trip with Weston. Grandma Ellie waited until everyone else had left the room. Then she took the phone and said, "Calm and steady. Go build something the world can't look away from. I believe in you more than I've ever believed in anything this family ever did." 1 week later my father followed through. Every account with my name on it went dark overnight. Debit cards declined. Trust fund transfers reversed. Even the emergency credit line disappeared without a call. I was left with $800 in cash and no safety net. And when I finally chose my own future, they made sure I had absolutely nothing to fall back on. When the accounts froze, there was no dramatic goodbye. No final argument. No apology tour. Just a debit card declining at a campus coffee shop, and a quiet notification that every door I'd grown up assuming would open was locked. I counted my money that night on the dorm room floor. $800. Wrinkled 20s and 50s from styling side gigs and selling old clothes online. That was it. 2 days later, I walked into TF Green Airport, bought the cheapest one-way ticket I could find, and boarded a flight to New York with no plan and no cushion. Middle seat. Crying baby behind me. A man on the aisle eating boiled eggs from a plastic bag. I stared out the window the entire flight and didn't cry once. I landed at LaGuardia with one battered suitcase and exactly 0 backup options. Bushwick, Brooklyn. Late 2014. I found a 4th-floor walk-up on Weirfield Street. 400 square feet. One window facing a brick wall. A radiator that screamed every time it turned on. A bathroom down the hall I shared with 3 guys who played death metal at 3 in the morning. Rent was $900 a month. I paid first, last, and security with almost everything I had left, then slept on the bare floor for 3 weeks because I couldn't afford a mattress. The very next morning, I was on the J train before sunrise, riding into the garment district. I started hanging around loading docks on West 38th and 39th, waiting for the luxury houses to dump their cutting room waste. At first, the workers thought I was a rich kid playing artist. Then I kept showing up. Every day. Rain, snow, freezing wind. After 2 weeks, they started saving the good bins for me. Rejected cashmere. Double-face wool with microscopic flaws. Silk that didn't pass inspection for reasons no customer would ever notice. They wrote a single C on the bags in black marker so no one else would take them. I dragged those bags home on the subway, arms aching, smelling like dye and chemicals. Back in my studio, I sorted everything under a single bare bulb. Labeled by fiber, by weight, by feel. My cutting table was 2 sawhorses and a warped sheet of plywood I found on the curb. My sewing machine was a 1974 Singer I bought for $40 and a promise to teach someone's granddaughter how to hem jeans. The first piece I ever finished took 48 straight hours. A structured tote made from midnight blue cashmere that had been rejected for one pulled thread, lined with leftover silk twill. No pattern. Just muscle memory and obsession. When it was done, I carried it up to the roof at sunset and took photos with my cracked phone against the skyline. Caption: one person's trash. I posted it to a brand new Instagram account under a name no one could trace back to me. 24 hours later, it had 12,000 likes. And a direct message. A partner at a women-led venture fund wanted to meet that week. We sat in a tiny cafe in Soho. She asked where I saw the brand in 5 years. I told her the truth. I didn't have a 5-year plan. I just knew I could make people fight to own things that were headed for landfills. She slid a term sheet across the table. $500,000 for 15%. One condition. My full name never appeared anywhere. Mystery, she said, is the ultimate luxury. I signed with a single letter. And for the next 11 years the world chased a ghost. And my family never once suspected it was me. The next 7 years weren't glamorous. They were quiet, controlled, ruthless in the way discipline has to be when no one is watching. I moved production to a drafty loft in the Brooklyn Navy Yard and hired seamstresses who'd been laid off when the last American couture houses shut their doors. Women with decades of skill and nowhere to put it. We built an entire supply chain out of what luxury brands had already written off. Every drop sold out in minutes. Not hours. Minutes. Vogue ran a blind item about a ghost label rewriting sustainable luxury. Bergdorf called, then called again. Buyers begged for exclusives they weren't allowed to name. Celebrities started wearing the pieces on red carpets and telling interviewers they had a friend who made them. I still lived in that same 400-square-foot walk-up. I still rode the subway. Still carried fabric bolts myself. Still kept my name off every contract, every label, every caption. No interviews. No launch parties. No face. Just work. Money came in fast, but ego never did. I didn't upgrade my life until the company could afford to upgrade everyone else's first. Raises before bonuses. Healthcare before headlines. Machines before marketing. Success stayed quiet on purpose. Every Christmas Eve for 11 years I stayed in New York. Same dumpling place on Mott Street. Same single glass of champagne at midnight. Same silent toast to another year of freedom. No tree. No family dinner. No pity. It wasn't loneliness. It was peace. Then, exactly 21 days before that Christmas, my private line rang at 7 in the morning. Only one person on earth still had that number. "Call in, sugar," Grandma Ellie said. Her voice as soft as the cashmere she used to wrap around me when I was little. I'm 82. The Lord hasn't sent me an expiration date, but I don't plan on sitting through another one of these dinners without my granddaughter beside me. I gave her every excuse I perfected over the years. Year-end inventory. Paris. Investors. Milan. All the armor. She listened without interrupting. Then she said one sentence. "I'll leave the porch light on. The same one that's been waiting since you were 17. That was it. I landed at Love Field on December 24th and chose the plainest gray rental car in the lot. No driver. No blacked-out SUV. No reason for anyone to whisper. I changed in the airport restroom into a simple black cashmere dress I'd owned for 6 years. No visible labels. Nothing they could turn into a weapon. I looked like someone with nothing left to prove. The house hadn't changed. Same imported tree. Same crystal. Same 40-foot table polished to a mirror shine. Weston sat across from me glowing in tailored velvet, his fiancée Spencer beside him in a red sequin dress that screamed ownership. Their engagement had been announced in October with a sponsored shoot in Aspen, and tonight they looked like the room belonged to them. The first insult landed before the first course cooled. Then another. Then laughter. By the time the main dish arrived, I was back where I'd always been. The family punchline. The cautionary tale. The trash picker who never amounted to anything. My parents sighed in perfect unison. Such an embarrassment to the family. Grandma Ellie slid her hand into mine under the table and squeezed once. Steady. Certain. She never let go. The air was thick with cruelty, laughter, and practiced superiority. And then, the TV turned on by itself. The house gleamed like it hadn't aged a day. The 30-foot Norwegian spruce in the great room was crowned with hand-blown crystal drops and fresh white orchids flown in from Thailand. Every detail screamed wealth. Every detail except me. I slid into my seat, simple black cashmere, no labels, no flash. Weston and Spencer sat directly across from me, glowing with entitlement. He in midnight velvet, sharp enough to cut glass. She in sequins red enough to make a fire engine jealous. They had been announced in October. Their engagement a spectacle. And tonight they owned the room. First course. Chilled lobster medallions with Ostra caviar. Spencer tilted her head and smiled, the kind of smile that dripped honey and acid at the same time. "That dress is very understated," she said, voice loud enough for the table to hear. "Still shopping Neiman's last call clearance rack, Collins?" Weston barked a laugh. A few cousins tried to hide smirks behind monogrammed napkins. Mother smiled with the practiced precision of someone who had trained for decades to validate humiliation. Second course. Seared foie gras with fig mustard. Weston leaned forward, smirk wide, voice carrying across the children's table. "So remind us, what exactly do you do in New York these days? Still diving into dumpsters for fabric scraps?" The room erupted. One of Mother's society friends fanned herself. Another cousin repeated dumpsters, like it was the punchline of a joke. Spencer leaned in, lips glinting, nails tapping the crystal stem. "Honestly, Collins," she cooed. "How do you even pay rent picking through garbage? Is there a secret Etsy store we're supposed to support?" Third course. Wagyu filet with black truffle bordelaise. She tapped again, sharper this time. 34 years old, still scavenging for a living. That's gotta be some world record. Weston raised his glass in mock salute. Father and mother mirrored each other, putting down knives and forks in perfect unison. Such an embarrassment to the family. The words landed like ice. I tasted nothing. Grandma Ellie, seated to my right, took my hand under the table. Small, warm, firm. Certain. She never let go. The tension was unbearable. Every bite of food, every jewel, every practice gesture screamed judgment. And then, exactly as the main course ended, the 85-inch TV on the wall flickered on. The string quartet froze mid-note. Crystal chandeliers reflected a sudden, almost electric light. A calm voice, impossibly loud, filled every corner of the room. Good evening. We interrupt your holiday programming with breaking news out of New York. The room went silent. Not a cough. Not a whisper. Just glass and crystal waiting to shatter. Forbes is exclusively revealing tonight the identity of the mysterious CEO behind the $9 billion sustainable luxury empire dominating fashion for the last decade. Sources confirm the majority owner and creative force is none other than Dallas native Collins Fairmont. Personal net worth $2.7 billion. A collective inhale. Glasses trembled. Bordeaux spilled. Faces drained of color. Spencer's hand shot to her throat. Weston's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. And Grandma Ellie? She smiled. Just a small, proud, radiant smile. I tightened my grip on her hand. Calm. Still. Knowing exactly what was coming next. The room's cruelty, their synchronized disappointment, their mockery. It had lasted for years. But tonight, the silent verdict was about to flip. And that's when the TV turned on by itself. The breaking news banner flashed across the massive screen in the great room. CNBC anchors' voices boomed. Crisp and impossible to ignore. For 11 years, the world has chased the ghost known only as SEA. Tonight, we can confirm. The mysterious founder behind the $9 billion sustainable luxury empire is none other than Dallas native Collins Fairmont. Personal net worth $2.7 billion. My official portrait appeared in full 8K. Black cashmere coat. Arms crossed. Manhattan skyline behind me. No smile. Silence fell like a physical weight. Weston's glass hit the marble floor. Bordeaux spilled like blood across the rug. Spencer's hand flew to her throat. Father froze mid-forkful. Mother's wine trembled in her hand, then splashed crimson across the tablecloth. Cousins whispered. Aunts gasped. Everyone froze, trapped in disbelief. Grandma Ellie's hand squeezed mine under the table. Firm. Steady. Certain. She had believed when no one else had. I rose slowly. Chair legs scraping the floor. Every sound amplified in the sudden hush. I smoothed my cashmere coat and let my gaze sweep across the table. 11 years of swallowed words rose like champagne, ready to uncork. 11 years, I said, voice calm, perfectly audible. 11 years of being the family cautionary tale. Year 1, they said I'd be back by February. Year 2, they laughed at the dumpster girl. Year 3, they called me an embarrassment. Years 4 through 11, the same joke. Only the Bordeaux got older, and the laughs got louder. I turned to Father first. You froze every account the week I left. Told the club I was finding myself. Let people whisper I was on drugs, in a cult. Anything but building something you couldn't control. Mother next. You rewrote the story so elegantly. Collins is taking an extended sabbatical. Smiled while your friends pitted you for refusing to marry oil money. Weston. You made a career out of it. Every Thanksgiving, every derby party, every time you needed to look taller, you stood on my back. My sister, the trash picker. Tonight, you delivered the punchline perfectly. Spencer tried to disappear into her sequence. I wasn't done. You laughed the hardest, Spencer. Congratulations. You win the table. I let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Then I dropped the numbers. The company you just saw on television, $9 billion. My personal net worth, $2.7 billion. Every cent from fabric the industry threw away. Every label anonymous. Every signature a single letter so none of you could ever take credit. Father tried to speak. I cut him off with a single word. No apologies. No sudden pride. No rewritten memories. Then I turned to the only person who had ever believed without question. Grandma Ellie. For 11 years she had sent letters. Never asked for proof. Never demanded photos. Never wavered. Her eyes filled. Her smile broke across her face brighter than the chandelier. I looked back at the 4 people who spent a decade sharpening knives on my spine. Tonight, the Fairmont family has 5 members at this table. As of this second, I am no longer one of them. My shares in the family office will be liquidated next week. My name removed from every trust, every board, every Christmas card list forever. Consider this my immediate and permanent resignation from the bloodline. Weston's voice cracked. Sis, come on. I looked him dead in the eye. Picking through trash paid $2.7 billion. Tell me, how much did ass-kissing pay you this year? Spencer gasped. Father toppled his chair. Mother's tears were finally real, not rehearsed. I didn't wait for another reaction. I knelt beside Grandma Ellie and wrapped her small, strong frame in my arms. I'm taking you home with me, I whispered. Real home tonight. She nodded. Tears fell. I stood, took her hand, walked out. No glance back. The porch light she promised was still burning. Outside, the Texas night was cold but free. And that wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of their collapse. By mid-January, the dominoes had begun to fall. Weston lasted exactly 72 days in the family office after Christmas. A Houston hedge fund widow forwarded the clip of him smirking while Spencer called me a trash picker, straight to father. Subject line: effective immediately. She pulled every penny. Within 10 days, 3 more legacy clients followed. Old Dallas money moves quietly, but decisively. By February, the office was bleeding 8 figures a quarter. Father called Weston into the corner office one Wednesday morning, handed him a banker's box, and the security team escorted him out before lunch. His severance wouldn't have covered the lease on the Range Rover. Spencer vanished faster than anyone expected. The engagement ring was off by Valentine's Day. By March, she was on a 95-foot yacht in St. Bart's, draped in diamonds, arm in arm with a 39-year-old crypto founder worth 5 times the entire Fairmont fortune. She posted a single black square on Instagram with the caption, "Turning the page." Comments were brutal. She disabled them. Highland Park hasn't seen her since. Father and mother became social pariahs almost overnight. Tables at the country club that had been reserved for them were suddenly off-limits. Invitations to every gala, charity ball, or debutante event simply never arrived. Mother tried to appear at a junior league meeting and realized her name had been quietly removed. Father spent afternoons in the study, bourbon in hand, staring at the Forbes cover that once propped open a window. I flew back to Dallas once on a gray Tuesday in late March. Gulfstream G650. No filing. No press. In and out under 5 hours. I drove myself from Love Field in a black Suburban with New York plates, walked straight into the marble foyer. Grandma Ellie waited under the chandelier with 2 small vintage Louis Vuitton suitcases, already packed and zipped. Camel coat, single strand of pearls, smile bright enough to light the state. We never went upstairs. Never looked for anyone else. The housekeeper carried the bags. Father appeared in a bathrobe 2 sizes too big. Face the color of ash. Mouth moving but no sound came out. Mother hovered behind him, clutching a crumpled Kleenex. Weston wasn't home. Probably at a bar trying to explain why his card had been declined. This is what resignation looks like, I said. Grandma Ellie squeezed my arm. We walked out. The heavy front door closed behind us with the soft finality of a bank vault. Drive to the airport. 19 minutes. She held my hand the entire way. I always knew you'd come back for me one day, she said quietly. I never left you, I answered. From that moment, every Texas number was blocked. Father, mother, Weston, the main house, the family office, even the gardener who still had my high school cell. Emails, LinkedIn, Instagram routed straight to trash. Legal shredded every certified letter unopened. No texts, no calls, no messages. Silence. Absolute perfect freedom. Back in New York, life returned to its quiet rhythm. Grandma Ellie and I brunch on the terrace every Sunday. She takes Earl Grey with a cloud of milk. I drink espresso. We read the weekend papers together, laughing at analysts guessing my next move. Some mornings she asks to see the new samples. She runs her fingers over the reclaimed cashmere like she's reading Braille and smiles. The same smile she gave me when I was 17, terrified, with nothing but $800 and a suitcase. That smile is worth more than every oil well in Texas combined. Some blood is thinner than water, and far more poisonous. Real success isn't the $9 billion on paper, the covers, the waiting lists, or the red carpet screams. Real success is waking up every morning and never needing the approval of people who spent a decade trying to bury you. I learned the difference between family and relatives the hard way. Relatives share DNA and dinner tables. Family shares belief when there is zero proof. For 11 years, I built an empire in silence because the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally used every chance to drag me through the mud. I don't hate them. Hate would mean they still occupy space in my head. I removed them entirely. Clean. Complete. Without hesitation. Today my world is smaller but infinitely richer. 2 toothbrushes in the master bath. 2 rocking chairs on the terrace. 1 woman who never asked for anything except that I become exactly who I was meant to be. Grandma Ellie sits beside me every evening, watching the sun sink behind Manhattan, sipping her tea, while I sketch next season's collection between us. Texas can keep their oil, their country clubs, their empty traditions, and their poisoned blood. I kept my freedom, my billions, and the one person whose love never came with conditions. Some people are born into families. I chose mine, and I chose the only one who ever chose me back.